My wife had an affair with her boss during our estate sale. We were secretly fighting over $250, $0 in inheritance when she suddenly claimed I poisoned her to hide her affair, and now the police are involved. I don't know who's telling the truth anymore. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing all this down, but life has a way of throwing you into situations you never saw coming. It all started with what seemed like a simple estate sale, just a way to clear out my parents' house after they passed away. My wife and I had been married for about 6 years. Things weren't perfect, but I thought we were solid. That is, until the day I started noticing little things that didn't add up. At first, it was just her being unusually distant. She'd come home late from work, sometimes claiming she had to stay late at the office or meet with clients. But she'd also suddenly start canceling plans, avoiding my calls, or giving me half-assed excuses about stress or being busy. Small things, but enough to make me suspicious. I caught her on her phone more than once, quickly hiding it. When I entered the room, she'd get defensive if I asked about her messages or her late nights. Then came the strange charges on our credit card. I was reviewing our bank statement one night, trying to get a grip on our finances, when I saw a $5, $0 charge to a hotel downtown. That was weird because she told me she was working late at the office the night before. I pressed her about it, and she said it was a business dinner with a client. But her tone was defensive and her eyes darted around like she was hiding something. I didn't push her too hard that night, but the seed of doubt was planted. A couple of days later, I decided to do a little digging. I knew was seeing her boss, Daniel, from her work. They'd always flirted, but I never thought it would turn into something physical. One evening, I caught her phone on the kitchen counter, unlocked, with a string of texts that made my stomach turn. She was sexting him, talking about their secret meetings, how much she loved the way he touched her, and even planning a business trip where they could be alone. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My wife, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with her boss, and I had no idea how long it had been going on. The worst part, she lied to my face about everything. Every time I confronted her, she'd call me paranoid, accuse me of distrust, or say I was jealous because she was successful and wanted to keep things private. She said she loved me, that it was just a fling, that Daniel was just a sex buddy she'd gotten bored of. But her tone, her eyes, they betrayed her. I knew she was lying. I started to piece together the timeline. The estate sale was on a Saturday, right in the middle of all this chaos. I remember seeing her sneaking out early that morning, her phone glued to her hand. Later that day, I saw her leave the house alone with her purse and coat, after telling me she was meeting a friend. That was the moment I realized she'd been hiding something from me for weeks, maybe months. The more I looked into it, the more I found out. She'd been meeting Daniel at hotels, restaurants, even at her office after hours. I'd always thought she was just working late, but now it seemed she'd been sneaking around behind my back while I was trying to handle the estate sale and the inheritance mess. We were fighting over a huge inheritance, about $250, $0, that we'd been arguing over for months, and I had a sinking feeling that her greed, or maybe her desperation to keep her affair secret, was driving her to lie and cheat. It hit me hard, realizing how much I'd been blind. I thought I knew her, but this was a different person entirely. The woman I married, the woman I trusted, was out there lying, cheating, and probably having sex with her boss. I found texts where she described their encounters in detail, how she loved the thrill, how Daniel made her feel alive again. I felt sick, like I'd been punched in the chest, and angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. That night I sat alone in our living room, staring at the phone that had all the evidence of her betrayal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. How could she do this to me, after everything we went through, our wedding, the estate sale, trying to build something real? And for what? A quick fuck with her boss. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew this was just the beginning. The real fight was about to start. The next morning, I knew I had to confront. There was no way I could keep pretending everything was fine. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, balancing between rage and heartbreak. I woke up early before she did, and decided to gather all the evidence I had. I printed out her texts, saved her emails, and even found some of her secret hotel receipts on her email account. I wanted to be prepared. When she finally came downstairs, looking tired and a little too casual, I could see the nervousness in her eyes. She always tried to act confident, bitchy even, but today she looked like she was trying to hide something even bigger than her usual attitude. I blocked her path in the kitchen and laid everything out on the table, her texts, her hotel receipts, her phone records. I didn't yell yet, I just looked at her with cold, hard eyes. "Tell me what this is," I said, sliding the printouts across the table. "This is you sexting your boss, Daniel. This is you sneaking around behind my back, lying about where you've been. How long has this been going on?" She looked at the papers, her face twisting into that familiar bitchy sneer. "You're overreacting, Mike," she snapped. "It's nothing, just some stupid sex thing. It's not a big deal." I couldn't believe her. Not a big deal. "You're cheating on me with your boss. How is that not a big deal?" She rolled her eyes and crossed her arms. "You're just jealous because I won't let you control me. You're always paranoid, accusing me of stuff. I'm tired of your accusations. You're insecure." I felt my blood boiling. I wasn't about to let her turn this around on me. "Insecure? You're the one sneaking around, lying and having sex with him. How long has this been going on? Weeks? Months?" She scoffed. "You don't know what you're talking about. Daniel and I are just friends. It's not like I'm in love with him or anything. It's just sex, Mike. Get over it." That was the moment I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't keep living with her lies. My mind was racing. I'd always thought we had a future, that we were partners, but she'd been playing me for a fool. I decided I'd had enough. I told her I was done, that I was going to tell her boss everything, and that I was filing for divorce. Her reaction was pure contempt. She called me paranoid, accused me of trying to ruin her career, and said I was just jealous of her success. But I wasn't just angry, I was devastated. How had I missed all the signs? How had I been so blind? I thought I knew my wife, but she was a different person behind closed doors. I felt betrayed to my core, and the pain hit me like a punch to the gut. I realized I'd been living in a kind of fog, ignoring the warning signs because I didn't want to believe the worst. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, the lies, the betrayal, the moments I didn't see. I was overwhelmed by a mix of anger, sadness, and helplessness. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what yet. All I knew was that my trust was shattered and I'd never see the same way again. The woman I married, the woman I loved, was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. And the worst part, I still had to deal with the aftermath of her affair, the inheritance fight, and the mess she'd left behind. After that confrontation, everything changed. Kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just paranoid, that Daniel was just a business acquaintance, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I could see through her lies now, and I knew I had to act fast. My mind was racing with plans, how to protect myself, how to get out of this mess she'd dragged me into. But the biggest issue wasn't just her affair. It was the inheritance, the estate sale, the money we were fighting over. That was the real leverage, and I wasn't about to let her manipulate that. The inheritance was supposed to be split evenly, but had always been aggressive about getting her share. She wanted control, and I had my suspicions she saw the money as a way to secure her future, maybe even to keep her affair hidden or to run away if she thought I'd find out. I decided I needed to dig deeper into the estate, figure out exactly how much was left, and see if she was planning something behind my back. I spent the next few days doing research, talking to the estate lawyers and checking the financials. Turns out, she'd been pressuring the lawyer to push the sale faster, probably to get her hands on the money before I could do anything. I also discovered that she'd secretly transferred some of her own assets into her sister's name, likely trying to hide her money. She was clearly scheming. That's when I realized I had to cut her off completely and protect what was mine. Meanwhile, his attitude turned even more bitchy and manipulative. She started throwing tantrums, accusing me of ruining her reputation, of trying to control her life. She told me I was just insecure, that I was jealous of her success and her affair with Daniel. She claimed she was only trying to find herself, whatever that meant. I knew better. I knew she was trying to cover her tracks, manipulate the situation, and keep her options open. One night, she even accused me of poisoning her, claiming I'd slipped something into her drink during the estate sale. That was absurd, but it was her way of turning the tables. She insisted I was trying to hide her affair because I was guilty or afraid of losing her. I was furious. I knew she was lying, trying to make herself the victim, but it only made me more determined to expose her. I started secretly recording our conversations, just in case I needed proof. I also hired a private investigator to follow her, just to see where she was going, who she was meeting. It turned out she'd been going to hotels with Daniel, sometimes staying overnight. The evidence was piling up. She was completely reckless, and I knew I had to act fast before she managed to hide everything or spin it in her favor. All the while, the inheritance fight was heating up. I learned that was trying to push a quick sale of the estate property, possibly to get her hands on the money before I could claim my share. I also found out she'd been secretly talking to a lawyer about changing the will, trying to cut me out entirely. That was the last straw. If she was willing to betray me this badly, I needed to take control of my own future. I started planning my next move, how to get her out of the house, how to protect my assets, and how to confront her once and for all. The emotional toll was enormous. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry. Every time I thought about her with Daniel, I wanted to scream. Every lie she told, every manipulation made me feel more like a stranger in my own life. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized that I couldn't keep living like this, wondering if she'd cheat again or lie her way out of everything. I had to be smart, ruthless even, to fight for what was mine, and to finally put an end to all of this chaos. By the time I reached the fourth day after the confrontation, I had gathered enough evidence to feel confident. I knew was planning something, maybe trying to pull off a quick sale of the estate assets or even trying to leave town with a chunk of the inheritance. I couldn't let that happen. I had to act fast, so I started making moves to secure my interests and prepare for what might come next. First, I contacted the estate lawyer I'd been working with and told him I wanted to freeze all assets related to the estate. I also asked him to review the current will and any recent changes. Turns out had been pressuring him to push through a sale of the estate property, something I'd suspected. The lawyer told me she'd been pushing for a quick sale, trying to get her hands on her inheritance before I could do anything about it. That confirmed my suspicions. I also requested copies of all recent transactions, transfers, and legal documents related to the estate. I needed to see exactly where the money was going and what was up to. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her financials. I found out she'd secretly transferred large sums into her sister's bank account. That was a red flag. I was pretty sure she was trying to hide some of her assets, possibly planning to leave town with a big chunk of money. I also learned she'd been talking to a lawyer about changing her will, trying to cut me out entirely. That was the final push I needed. I couldn't let her get away with this. I decided I had to confront her directly, but I wanted to do it smart. I arranged for a private meeting, pretending everything was normal, but I had a plan. I told her I knew about her affair, about her financial moves, and that I wasn't going to let her ruin me. Her reaction was classic, bitchy, defensive, and dismissive. She called me paranoid, accused me of trying to control her, and insisted I was just jealous because she was more successful than me. I could see the panic in her eyes, though, and that gave me some satisfaction. During the meeting, I laid out all the evidence I had, her texts, her secret transfers, the hotel receipts, everything. I told her I was calling the estate lawyer to freeze the assets until we sorted everything out. Her face twisted in anger and frustration. She yelled, called me a jealous loser, and accused me of trying to destroy her. But I stayed calm. I knew I had her cornered now. That night, I made sure to change all the passwords on our financial accounts and set up alerts for any large transactions. I wanted to be one step ahead. I also contacted a friend who's a private investigator to keep tabs on her. If she tried to leave town or do something reckless, I wanted to know immediately. I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Relief because I finally had some control, but anxiety because I knew her bitchy, manipulative nature. She was dangerous when cornered. In the days that followed, attitude only got worse. She was throwing tantrums, accusing me of trying to ruin her reputation and calling me paranoid and jealous. But I didn't care. I was done playing her game. I had the evidence, I had the legal moves, and I was prepared for whatever she threw at me next. I also started reaching out to friends and family, just in case she tried to manipulate them too. The last thing I wanted was her turning everyone against me. Looking back, I realize how much this ordeal has changed me. I used to trust her completely. Now I see her for what she really is, a manipulative, selfish woman who's willing to cheat, lie, and scheme just to get what she wants. I don't know what's coming next, but I do know I won't let her destroy me or take what's mine. The fight for the estate, for my dignity, is just beginning. At least, I'm finally in a position to fight back. The tension kept building as I stayed one step ahead of schemes. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that her bitchy attitude was just a front. She was desperate, cornered, and willing to do anything to keep her grip on the money and her secrets. I had frozen the estate assets, changed the passwords, and even hired a security team to keep an eye on her. Still, she was unpredictable, and I knew I couldn't let my guard down. One evening, I caught her sneaking out of the house, her purse heavy and her face flushed. I followed her at a distance, pretending I was just out for a walk. Turns out she was meeting Daniel again, this time at a hotel downtown. I parked nearby and watched her go inside. That was the moment I realized she was planning to run, to leave everything behind and start fresh with her lover. That's when I decided I had to do something more drastic. The next morning, I contacted the estate lawyer and told him to prepare a legal notice for freezing her access to all the estate funds. I also drafted an official statement to the police, warning her that I suspected she was trying to hide assets or commit fraud. I needed to make sure she knew I was serious. Her bitchy attitude and manipulative games had pushed me to the edge, and I was ready to fight dirty if I had to. Meanwhile, I kept monitoring her movements. The private investigator sent me photos of her meeting Daniel at the hotel. She was definitely planning something. I also found out she'd been trying to get her hands on a large insurance policy I had, claiming she wanted to protect our future. But I knew better. She was scheming to get as much money as possible, maybe even trying to push me out of the picture completely. I was feeling a mix of anger and determination. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, and I wasn't going to let her get away with everything. I started compiling all the evidence: texts, bank transfers, hotel receipts, her attempts to change the will, and kept it in a secure folder. I also started talking to a lawyer about filing for divorce, knowing that I had enough grounds now, especially with her infidelity and financial deception. Her behavior was becoming even more bitchy and confrontational. She would lash out at me, call me insecure, paranoid, and accuse me of trying to control her. She was trying to turn everyone against me, claiming I was the bad guy, but I refused to be manipulated anymore. I knew her game now. One night I confronted her again. I told her I knew everything, that I had proof of her affair, her financial moves, and her plans to run. I told her I was going to the police if she tried to leave or hide anything else. She looked stunned for a moment, then burst into a rage, calling me a jealous loser and saying I was ruining her life. I just looked at her and told her I was done. I was tired of her bitchy attitude, her lies, and her manipulations. I was ready to take control and put an end to her schemes once and for all. The final pieces of the puzzle are falling into place. I know she's planning her next move, but I'm prepared. I've got the evidence, the legal backing, and the support I need. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about reclaiming my life and dignity. I don't know how it will all end, but I do know I won't let her destroy me or walk away with everything. The fight for what's mine is just beginning. In the end, everything unraveled faster than I thought it would. The day I handed over all the evidence to my lawyer's facade crumbled. She tried to spin it, calling me crazy, accusing me of stalking her or trying to ruin her reputation. But I had everything documented: texts, bank transfers, hotel receipts, her attempts to change the will, even her secret conversations with her lawyer. There was no denying the truth anymore. The police got involved after I filed a report based on her attempts to hide assets and her suspicious behavior at the hotel. They questioned her, and her bitchy attitude only made her look worse. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just jealous and paranoid, but the officers weren't buying it. They found her trying to transfer more money out of the estate accounts. She was caught red-handed. The divorce was finalized within a few months. His lawyer tried to drag it out, but with all the evidence, it was clear she'd been scheming from the start. She lost her claim to the inheritance, and I got my fair share, more than enough to start over. The house was sold, and I moved into a new place, far away from her manipulations. Looking back, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me. I learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you can betray you the worst. But I also learned that you have to fight for yourself, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. The betrayal hurt, but it also made me stronger. I won't ever let anyone manipulate or lie to me like that again. Now I focus on rebuilding my life, taking care of myself, and making sure I never get like this again. Inheritance. It's gone, but I've gained something more valuable. A hard-earned lesson about honesty, boundaries, and the importance of trusting only those who prove they're worthy. It's gone, and I don't plan on looking back. I just hope anyone else out there facing something similar remembers. Don't ignore the signs, stand your ground, and never let someone treat you like a fool. Because at the end of the day, the truth always comes out, even if it takes a little chaos to get there.